بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. So alhamdulillah, we discussed Alif, Ba, Ta, and we will be moving on to the next letter today, which is a bit more simple than the past 2-3 letters that we've been discussing, which had a lot more technicalities. So today, inshallah, we're going to discuss how is Tha pronounced, which is very simple, and how is Tha mutaharrik and sakin pronounced. On the bright side, unlike the other letters, Tha sakin does not have any really different rules as opposed to mutaharrik, so it'll be much easier. And while people may make different errors in Tha, I thought I would highlight one specific error regarding the letter Tha. First thing is that how is the Tha pronounced? So Tha is pronounced when two parts of the mouth come into contact. The first part is the front of the tongue, right? The front of the tongue, and it's almost like the tip of the tongue. When it has to come into contact with the edges of the upper front teeth. So the edges of the upper front teeth. It's almost like we are biting on our tongue slightly. It's like we're biting on it. So if you see here in this, see right over here, you can see that the tongue is kind of coming out, almost. You don't bite on it, but when you're pronouncing it, the tongue is slightly almost out. So this tongue is touching the bottom of the front teeth, the bottom of the upper front teeth. It's underneath it. It's not inside. It's out almost a little bit outside. So it's a Tha. So if you actually take your tongue and you kind of bite on it a little bit, and then you can just let air out, kind of like a snake. So the sound will come out very easily. So like I mentioned before, the tongue should slightly come out. It should not come out all the way, but the tongue should slightly come out to create the sound of the Tha. And we're going to come back to this, that what happens if you do not do this. Next thing is a mutaharrik and sakin Tha, which is very easy. So when a Tha has a haraka, fatha, dhamma, kasra, very simple. You simply just release the tongue from the edges. So when you're biting on it or whatever, and it's underneath the upper teeth, simply just release it and make whatever motion for the haraka. We went through the motions of the haraka 2-3 classes ago, so you can refer to that if you need to know what motions of the haraka mean. So for example, if it had a fatha, so you put your tongue underneath the upper teeth, and then you'll make the motion for a fatha, which is when you let's separate the jaws. Tha, tha. So it'll be thaqulat, thaqulat, thaqulat. So tha, tha. If it's a dhamma, you'll do the same thing. You'll put your tongue on the right at the edges of the upper teeth, and then when you let it go with the air, you'll take your lips and make them round. So it'll be thu, haythu, haythu. Next is a kasra. Same thing when you lower your jaw. هذا الحديث هذا الحديث. So thi. So that was when it's mutaharrik. When Tha when Tha is sakin, the tongue will remain on the edges of the upper teeth, and you just keep releasing air. So for example, in this word, mithluhum. So if you want to kind of stretch it, myth. So the tongue stays there underneath the upper teeth, mithluhum, and you just let out air, mithluhum. So that is as simple as Tha is. There's nothing complicated about it, alhamdulillah. One very common error, which I just wanted to highlight, which I see among students, especially people from the Indian subcontinent, they have this error, which is very common. And that is, in just one small line, the Urdu Sa is not the Arabic Tha. The Urdu Se is not the Arabic Tha. And this is a big mistake that happens from students and from adults that are from the Indian subcontinent, from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, all those places. They recite a Tha as a Sa. So in Urdu, a Tha is pronounced with a sort of a seen or an S sound, like we say S in English, some, so. And how does this S sound come out in Urdu? It's somewhere along the lines of you take your front of your tongue and you place it kind of on the gums that are behind the upper teeth, on the top of your mouth, that little rough area, that rough area that's right behind the upper teeth. You put your tongue somewhat there and slightly touch it there. You'll have that se sound come out. Se, sa, su, stop. Right? So that's how that sound comes out. That's not how you pronounce a scene, actually. When we get to scene, I'll explain why that's the wrong way to do a scene, even though most people pronounce it that way. But anyway, so when a tha is pronounced in Urdu, when you pronounce it, it has a sa sound, sa or se. So that tongue is touching, the tongue is not touching the bottom of the upper front teeth. It's actually touching the gums behind the upper teeth. So it's in the wrong area completely. In Arabic, a tha is pronounced by making the tip of the tongue slightly protrude out from the mouth. So the difference is in Urdu, when you're saying a se, your tongue is actually inside your mouth. But in Arabic, when you pronounce a tha, the tongue is actually coming out. Very little, but it's actually coming out of your mouth. So it's almost like they're two completely different letters. To pronounce the Urdu se, your tongue has to be inside the mouth. And to pronounce the Arabic tha, your tongue has to be kind of outside of the mouth. And you have to be kind of biting on it. So those are two different letters. If the tongue is kept completely inside your mouth and it does not kind of pop out for a tha, it will move up to the area behind the upper teeth and will result in a sound similar to a sin or the Urdu se, which is incorrect. So for example, if you have a word like mathaluhum, if you say masaluhum, that's wrong. If you have a word like haythu, if you say haysu, that's wrong because that's a scene in the Arabic language. And in Arabic, words that have a scene and words that have a tha, they have two completely different meanings. I don't even know what masaluhum would even mean. Mathaluhum has a meaning, so it will change the actual meaning of the entire word. So we have to be very careful that when we recite a tha, the tongue is actually underneath the the upper teeth, and it's kind of coming out. You kind of bite on it a little so it doesn't come out too much, and that's how you pronounce a tha, So that's as complicated as a tha, I guess, alhamdulillah. Inshallah, tomorrow we will go on to the letter Jim. Jim might get a little bit complicated because it's a letter of a qalqala, and I want to discuss one specific aspect about a Jim when you do qalqala and there's a shadda and you're stopping. Inshallah, we'll discuss that tomorrow. So we'll discuss that tomorrow, inshallah.